welcome all the dignitaries, faculty, staff, students from CMC and other institutions, friends, families, and well-wishers. We request our guests, Padma Shri Mr. Romulus Whitaker, Ms. Janaki Lenin, Dr. Solomon Satish Kumar, Vice Principal UG, and Dr. Vikram Matthews to please come up and take the dais.
The Christian Medical College, Vellore, was started in the year 1900 by Dr. Ida Scudder, a third-generation medical missionary from the USA. CMC was started as a single-bed dispensary, which, by the grace of God, has grown to this prestigious institution today, which caters to about 9,000 outpatients on a daily basis, and is renowned for its healthcare, medical education, and research.
This year, we celebrate 100 years of medical education. What started as a licentiate diploma in 1918 has now expanded to undergraduate, postgraduate degree and diploma courses in medical, nursing, and allied health sciences.
To commemorate the centenary of medical education, the institution has invited eminent personalities from different walks of life under the Luminary lecture series. The aim of this series of lectures is to listen and imbibe from people who, by their work and life, have empowered and transformed societies, have contributed to our national life, or are role models for the youth. Shri Bezwada Wilson, Ramon Magsaysay recipient and national convener of the Safai Karamchari Andolan, delivered the first Luminary lecture on Feb 28.
Today, we are honored to have with us Padma Shri Mr. Romulus Whitaker and his wife, Ms. Janaki Lenin, to deliver the second Luminary lecture. We now request our senior chaplain, Reverend Dr. Arul Das, to start with the opening prayer. We request everyone to kindly stand up for the opening prayer and remain standing for the Call-It song.
Loving and gracious God, we thank you and praise you for Christian Medical College, Vellore. Thank you for 100 years of medical education and all the people who have gone through the portals of this college. Even now, as we celebrate your faithfulness in our lives, as we celebrate your presence and guidance in our lives, we thank you for this series of Luminary lectures. We particularly thank you, O Lord, for Padma Shri Mr. Romulus Whitaker and Ms. Janaki Lenin. We thank you for the transformatory work they have done and they are still doing. We pray that you may help us this evening as we listen to them, inspire us as we hear them. May your presence bless us, guide us, and lead us through this evening. In Christ's precious name we pray. Amen.
Children should strive to
I now request Dr. Solomon Satish Kumar, Vice Principal of UG, to say a few words about the centenary year.
Good evening and a warm welcome once again to the Luminary lecture series. I'm sure the first lecture by Mr. Biswara Wilson is still echoing in our hearts, and we look forward to this evening. We are indeed privileged and honored to have Mr. Romulus Whitaker and Ms. Janaki Lenin with us this evening. Shall we warmly welcome them with a clap? The large blue banner that is displayed outside the entry gate of the college campus says it all, celebrating 100 years of medical education. Indeed, we have every reason to celebrate and be thankful for 100 years of quality medical education that has made an impact on healthcare in our country and beyond. A rich legacy of excellence with compassion has been passed down to us. The centenary year is an apt time to look back and remember the many people who have invested their life for the cause of CMC and God's kingdom, who have dedicated themselves in mentoring students. My five-year-old daughter sometimes playfully tells me, "You don't know anything, Dada." I'm sure that must have been an experience for many parents where your children sometimes say, and I'm sure the students also must be telling the parents sometimes, "You don't know anything." Somehow, she has got to know that CMC is 100 years old. She asked me innocently 2 weeks ago, she said, "Dada, how can CMC be 100 years old? It didn't die, huh? You only told me when people become old, they will die." And of course, she finished with her favorite line, "You don't know anything, Dada." Yes, CMC has stood the test of time. CMC has held on to the vision of its founder, Ida Scudder, and several other pioneers. CMC has continued to grow from strength to strength in education, service, and research. As we celebrate our centenary year, we thank God for His goodness and faithfulness through several generations. We thank God for the staff and students, both past and present, who have kept the flag of CMC flying high, who have made CMC a forerunner in medical education in the country. We thank God for the several people who have served the institution, who have carried the torch and passed it on faithfully for the next generation. Over the past 100 years, CMC has provided medical education in an environment of caring and professional excellence. The institution has equipped numerous men and women with an education of the highest grade, the art and science of medicine, for service in the spirit of Christ. And as part of our centenary year celebrations, we have the Luminary lecture series, through which CMC seeks to honor people from other walks of life who have responded to a need and made a difference in our country, being agents of change. We are sure that these lectures will enlighten, inspire, and motivate us to greater heights in the years to come. So let's sit back and be inspired this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now request Dr. Vikram Matthews, Associate Director, Professor and Head of Hematology, to introduce and welcome our luminaries for this evening's lecture.
Good evening. A warm welcome to everyone to the second of the Luminary lecture series. A warm welcome, and it's a privilege to have amongst us Padma Shri Romulus Whitaker and Ms. Janaki Lenin. A warm welcome to all the students from different schools around Vellore, our own students, faculty, well-wishers, and other dignitaries. When we think of snakes, for the most part, one thinks of poison, but paradoxically, the symbol for medicine is actually a rod with a snake wound around it, the Aescupulus rod, as it's often called, the mythical god of medicine. But in reality, when we really think of snakes, one always instinctively associates it with evil, with danger, whether it's the snake in the Garden of Eden, or when we're talking in medicine, we're always talking about envenomation and the protein effects, unfortunately, most of which are lethal. and how to manage it. And in reality, when one sees a snake, one really goes in the opposite direction. So it's really interesting to have with us a herpetologist who actually studies snakes and is involved with the preservation of snakes and dedicated his life to actually preservation of snakes and other reptiles. He has been involved with numerous firsts. He was born in the US, but came to India as a child and has never looked back. He tells me from his childhood, he has always loved the creepy crawlies, as they would call it. And he really has done enormous work in India with regards to preservation of wildlife and snakes and reptiles in particular. He started the first reptile park in Chennai, which many of us may be familiar with or have visited at some time. He's also started the first crocodile gene bank. He established the Andaman and Nicobar Island Environmental Team and the Agumbe Rainforest Research Study of king cobras. For those who have seen Animal Planet, at least for me, a favorite scene is Mr. Whitaker actually kneeling in a hot, humid forest, looking at a probe, looking at the nests of king cobras, which apparently don't hatch in any kind of controlled environment except in this particular forest. And you have to get the right temperature and humidity. And the kind of contributions he has made to understanding this and taking this forward in a practical way is really quite phenomenal. Obviously, his work has been well recognized world over. He is the winner of numerous awards. They are far too many. His creations and his productivity in writing, in speech, and in the visual field are really numerous. Most of us have seen it. He was the winner of the Whitley Award, and much more recently, the Indian government recognized his contribution and awarded him the Padma Shri, the highest honor that the country can give for his contribution to the conservation of wildlife in India. Ms. Janaki Lenin is a filmmaker and an author. She has worked very closely with Romulus Whitaker and has been involved in many of his creations. Many of the movies and most of the creation that you see on National Geographic are a lot of work put in by her through the creation of Draco films. She's an author, and I find some of the titles of her books very interesting. One of them is called My Husband and Other Animals, and you can imagine that will obviously be very popular. It's a favorite Father's Day gift. She is very involved, in addition to being an author and a filmmaker, she is also very actively involved in animal conservation, and she's also actively involved in human-animal conflict resolution. It's not as easy as you think, but she tells me that it's easier in handling that than handling Professor of Medicine and Professor of Medicine conflicts. Once again, I take this opportunity to invite speakers for this evening, a very warm welcome, and thank you once again for being in our midst.
Thank you, Dr. Vikram. I now request Dr. Deepa Braganza, Professor and Head of Psychiatry Unit 2, to honor Ms. Janaki Lenin with a Ponade, and Dr. Anand Zachariah, Professor of Medicine, to honor Padma Shri Mr. Romulus Whitaker with a Ponade.
The centenary song, Home of Transformation, has been written by our Vice Principal, Dr. Solomon Satish Kumar, and his wife, Mrs. Asha Solomon. The theme of the song centers around empowering, inspiring, and transforming lives. CMC seeks to be a witness for Christ, nurturing young lives for the past 100 years, presenting to you our centenary song, Home of Transformation.
Many have walked into your portals to a calling to serve and to give. Excellence your theme, with integrity care for the sick with compassion and love, equipping each one, their hearts and their hearts, to step out in faith each day, seeking to be a witness for Christ, nurturing young lives for the past 100 years, making a difference to our nation and more, bringing healing and wholeness to the unreached and poor, to all who would enter a home of transformation.
Friend of the poor, the downtrodden too, empowering them for life, called to be light and salt on this earth, a beacon of hope in our land. We'll carry the torch, passed down through the years, dispelling all darkness and fears, seeking to be a witness for Christ, nurturing young lives for the past 100 years, making a difference to our nation and more, bringing healing and wholeness to the unreached and poor, to all who would enter your home, a home of transformation, seeking to be a witness for Christ, nurturing young lives for the past 100 years, making a difference to our nation and more, bringing healing and wholeness to the unreached and poor, to all who would enter your home, a home of transformation, a home of transformation.
It is a great privilege to have Padma Shri Mr. Romulus Whitaker and Ms. Janaki Lenin amongst us to deliver the second Luminary lecture. I now invite Padma Shri Mr. Romulus Whitaker to give his talk on the Irula snake catchers, best in the world.
It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. I have actually a long history with CMC. Having been a student of Kodaikanal School, I had the honor and pleasure of meeting Dr. Ida Scudder way back then in the 50s. I'm that old, yes. So I did finally finish high school in 1960. I don't know how they let me. I wasn't a very good student. And I tried to go to college in America, and I did even worse there. I was always interested in wildlife and being out in the jungle and catching snakes and doing things like that. So I did a few other things in America, including a stint in the US Army during the Vietnam War. I didn't get to Vietnam. I guess I didn't look like the kind of guy who would go out and shoot people, so they made me a medical lab technician. So I do have some association with the medical field, a bit of knowledge. When I came back to India in 1967, I had worked in the United States at a place called the Miami Serpentarium. It was the largest venom production center in the world. And I learned all about how to produce venom, how to take care of snakes. And in my mind was this dream. I'm living in the so-called land of snakes. Why shouldn't we have a snake park in India? And I came back here, and one of the first things I did, I heard about a tribe of people called the Irlas of Tamil Nadu. Now, I had grown up in Tamil Nadu, and I had learned Tamil when I was a kid growing up in Kodaikanal. So it was kind of natural for me to head back down here. And I met, the first man that I met in the Irla tribe was this guy in the photograph named Natesan. Now, the Russell's viper we're holding there was a defanged Russell's viper, which we had rescued from a snake charmer. We said, no, you're not going to have this Russell's viper. We're not going to let you kill it. We're going to let its fangs grow back, and we're going to release it. But before his fangs grew back, we decided we'd take this corny picture. This is not to encourage people to handle Russell's vipers, by the way, please. So I started going out with Natesan and his family and learned a little bit about how they found snakes. Now, I had always looked for a peer group. I had always looked for somebody who was also interested in snakes in India. And when I was growing up, the only people I could find were snake charmers. And they're all just, a bunch of charlatans telling you all sorts of lies about snakes. They weren't my kind of people. But when I met the Irlas, I found out these people were so sensitively aware of what snakes do and how to find them, and they taught me a heck of a lot every time I went out with them. Ramachandran, another snake charmer, snake hunter from those days. In fact, it was a time when the snakeskin industry was burgeoning, and people were catching and killing snakes by the millions, including the Irlas. And this is, of course, something I didn't like at all. The skin industry then, I think the figures were something like 10 million snake skins were being exported every year from India to Germany and Italy and France and the United States to make handbags and shoes and all that kind of thing. It was totally out of control. There were no seasons. They were killing small snakes, female snakes with eggs in them. They were just slaughtering snakes, literally. So we had to do something about this. I went to several of the snakeskin markets and found out that the Irlas were hardly getting a pittance for the snakes that they were killing. And we had to figure out some other way of making it good for them and good for the snakes too. The snakeskin industry, as I said, was just so wasteful, and a lot of us worked very hard petitioning the government, and during the time in the early 70s when the Wildlife Act was finally enforced, this was going to spell the end of the snakeskin industry. But it also meant, you can just see some of the stacks and stacks of skins here that they were selling in those days. This also meant that the Irlas were going to be out of a job. And their skills in finding snakes were so, let's say, fine-tuned. They would, you read about a good hunter walks through the forest and he sees a bent blade of grass and he says, a tiger walked this way yesterday or something like that. Well, the Irlas would look at a little bit of sand around a burrow, a rat burrow, and say, there's a snake inside. I'd say, how can you tell that? Oh, come on, stupid. You can see the snake is moved this way and the sand is that way, so he's gone inside. And I said, well, how do you know he hasn't come out again? No, because, hey, come on, don't be so stupid. You can see that he's inside because there's no sand on the other side of the hole coming out. I said, okay, I believe you. Then he would dig down and sure enough, pull out a cobra. So a lot of what I learned about snakes then was absolutely a first for me. I was really overwhelmed with every day they were teaching me something else. Find a piece of shedded skin, and they would immediately identify it. This is not a cobra shed. This is the shed of a rat snake. How can you tell that? Well, they didn't call me stupid too much, but I could imagine what they were thinking. They'd say, look very carefully at the skin. you can see there's a little fold on the top, a little tiny keel on the scale. That's a rat snake. That's not a cobra. Cobra's skin is very smooth. So every day I was learning something new. And this is interesting. Some of the other stuff that the tribal people knew at that time, I mean, I was always enamored of tribal people anywhere in the world that I was, simply because of their very, very interesting things that they did. What Nadesan is doing here is lighting a bidi with what he called a chechmuki. And this was basically just a little shell in which there was some silk cotton, and he had a little piece of flint and a little piece of iron, and he'd snap it like that, and it would start glowing, and he'd blow at it a little bit and get some. So he didn't need matches, in other words. He said, no, matches are 1 anna each packet, too expensive. So he used his chechmuki instead. And this guy, Annamalai, was bitten by a cobra, and I know this is a kind of a nasty-looking picture here, but I just wanted to tell you the story about it. He was very cool about it. He got bitten by a cobra, and this was several weeks later. He didn't go for antivenom. I tried to get him to go to the hospital, but no, he wanted to use his own pachala marand, the herbal medicines that he plastered onto it and ate some, and he survived fine, but his finger didn't survive. The next time I saw Annamalai, the finger was missing, and I said, what happened to your finger? And he said, it got in the way, so I just snapped it off and chucked it away. I mean, how casual can you be? This man was a real legend in his time. His name is Chokalingam, and he's another one of the Irlas who taught me many, many things when I went out together with him. And he's here holding a little baby cobra, which is, again, nothing that I should encourage anyone to do. His son, Kali, Chokalingam has died many years ago, but his son, Kali, is still around, a member of the Irla Snake Catchers Cooperative, which we set up. And here he is with a catch of rats for the morning. That's another skill which they had. The Irlas are basically experts at digging. In fact, besides digging for the rats and snakes they catch, they were often, before JCBs and all these fancy machinery came around, the Irlas were often hired to dig ditches which had to be just those thin ditches to lay cables and stuff like that, just because they're so skillful at digging. And digging, of course, means that as you're going down, you have to see whether the tracks continue to go down. First of all, you have to identify whether it's a hole where there's a snake inside or a rat inside. But they knew all this just from the signs. And they had other techniques of catching rats as well. They'd go to a rice field, check out all the rat holes, and they'd be able to tell which rat holes were what they call live holes, where there were rats inside. And Chokalingam would take a bunch of dry leaves and put them in a mud pot and a matka, and make a little hole in the bottom of it, light the leaves on fire, press the matka over the rat hole and pack it very nicely with mud and blow the smoke inside. And you should see the rats pouring out. They would just come pouring out left and right, and then they'd catch them. And besides they would put little nets just next to the exit holes of where the rats would come out so that they could net them. And the whole point was these were meat for the Irlas. I know the idea of eating rats doesn't sound too palatable, but what the heck? Someone said that you shouldn't call them rats, you should call them paddy bunnies. That makes it sound much nicer, you know. They're like little rabbits which live in the fields. They're not the dirty sewer rats or the rats that you find in the city like bandicoots and stuff like that. They're nice, clean, rice-eating rats. So, fine. And I have to admit, I tasted them, and they did taste fine. Once you got over the idea of it, that is. And here was a good catch one day. This actually happened because we proposed to one of the ministries in Delhi that why don't we try a natural way of catching rats. Instead of putting all these poisons into the rice fields to kill rats, why not get the Irlas to try this out? So we got a grant to actually do a whole year of study on how effective the Irlas were. and they caught 240,000 rats and recovered 5 tons of rice from their burrows. And we thought, yes, this is the method, but unfortunately it never progressed beyond that. And I'm still disappointed, and I still think there's something to say about this particular method, this way of dealing with rats. No poisons, all natural. And these are just a couple of pictures of some successful rat hunts. And the roast at the end of the day, it's a very simple way of, you just make a whole pile of thorns, put the rats on top after killing them, of course, and let the pile of thorns burn down, and you have a bunch of barbecued rats. There you are. Okay, not only that, their skills are vast. They were into medicinal plants, and every season, just before the rains come, you notice how termites swarm, and they're all around the lights and everything like that. Usually just before the rains, usually around September in Tamil Nadu anyway. And they are called isal, okay? All the winged termites, the adult termites, the males and females, and they go on their so-called nuptial flights by the thousands, by the tens of thousands. Okay, the Urlas figured something out though. They have a little bean which they call isal kotai, which means just the isal bean or the termite bean. And they'll rub it on a piece of brick, they'll heat it up and rub it, and blow it on top of a termite mound which they feel is ready to emerge. And sure enough, at night, what they'll do is actually put one of their wives' old saris around the termite mound, and they say it's to stop the wind from coming, so the termites think there's a big rain just about to come, and then they start whispering and start chanting, like this. They go on and on like this, and they'll be blowing this dust, the powder of the isal kotai, over it. And meanwhile, they've made a little hole and put a tin inside and a couple of sticks with a little lamp on top of it. And it's just amazing. The isals start pouring out. They don't fly, though, because they're not ready to fly yet. But they've come out apparently because of the chanting and the smell of the isal kotai. And they all flow almost like water down into this little tin. And they just keep on emptying the tin into a gunny sack until they've got tens of thousands of isal. Then you have to winnow it just the way you do rice, get rid of the wings, and you've got another snack. I know eating insects doesn't sound... Really, you should try it someday, though. They put it on a little chapati tawa and roast it up nicely, a little bit of chili powder. Wonderful. And here's actually Chokaling doing the chanting and blowing the isal kote dust over the termite mound. That's his wife's sari in the background. She was a little bit angry about that because it wasn't an old sari after all. And there's the whole thing being set up. It's just amazing the amount of how many termites can come out of one mound. And there they are gathering them up. Okay, they're very much into medicines and medicinal plants. And this particular methodology when it comes to snake bite treatment, we're right up in front and saying to people, you've got to get to a hospital and get antivenom if you're bitten by a snake. You cannot waste time doing all sorts of herbal remedies or trying out different things. You've got to get to a hospital. In this case, in the case of a saw-scale viper bite, they bring the swelling from the arm toward the hand by using a rope, and then they make little incisions in between the fingers, and a lot of blood and other serum and so on starts flowing out, and the swelling actually reduces. You watch them do it, and it's actually horrifying. But they really believe in this, and I've seen them doing it many times. And although I have protested and say, no, you take them to a hospital and something like that, it seems to work because the lymphatic system gets completely messed up by saw-scale viper bite. And not being a medical person, I can't explain what the mechanics of it are, but this apparently alleviates this, and the swelling does go down. And the herbs that they're using, they mass the herbs around it. they'll keep it on for about 3 days, and after that, the swelling is all gone down. I just think that someone should look into this because there are cases where saw-scale viper bite has left permanent swelling injuries, and the swelling never went down. In this case, a young lad was bitten by a cobra, and although they did do some various medicines, we managed to get him to a hospital and got antivenom. Okay, we got the Irlas into stuff that they had never been into before, too, because once we started the Madras Crocodile Bank, we used their services for one thing to catch all the rats to feed the crocodiles by the thousands. And Natesan here holding one of the first baby crocodiles we bred in captivity. And we started going together to various places like Amaravati Reservoir and Satana Reservoir, and they would find out where the crocodiles had laid their eggs. And with the permission of the Forest Department, we'd collect the eggs and bring them back and hatch them out. And we got our first Gario baby from North India. And this is Rajamani. I was just remembering when I see his face, his nickname was Yeli Kardi. That means a rat bear. And I said, well, why do they call him rat bear? Because when he digs for rats, you see him disappear into the hole, and just his feet will be out of the hole, and he'll very joyously hand you a rat, and so that's why his name. There was another guy named Katrikai. There are all sorts of nicknames for each other. Good fun. And in the midst of all this, I started getting very interested in making films, and we made a film called Modalai, Crocodile, or actually in English, the name is The Boy and the Crocodile. We made it for the Children's Film Society. And this young Irla boy, Yermalai, became very enamored of crocodiles. He got very friendly with the adult crocodile that we had in the film. And the croc let him come very close to him. And yeah, it really worked very well. They used to show it on Saturday morning sort of TV time for kids. It was a very... And it went worldwide. We got invited to Iran and Moscow and China and all that. So it was wonderful that Yermalai was seen all around the world in this film, playing with crocodiles. And at the climax of the film is that he rescues the crocodile and swims with it into the sea. So try and get a chance to see that sometime. It's called Modalai, or I think they call it Dost Magarmach in Hindi, or The Boy and the Crocodile. Okay, we set up the Irla Snake Catchers Cooperative in 1978, and Dr. Salim Ali was our patron for that, and we needed a lot of sort of ammunition because the government, especially the Forest Department, considered the Irlas as poachers, and so how could we set up a cooperative society where they were going to still catch snakes? We said, look, it's not to kill the snakes now, it's to catch them and extract venom from them. And this was just, I just threw this in because 40 years later, now it's the sons and grandsons of the same old guys who helped me start the cooperative doing the same work 40 years later. And that is extracting venom. This is the venom extraction technique we use for Russell's vipers, for any snake really. Stretch a piece of rubberized cloth over a glass and let the snake bite into it. It's pretty natural for the snake to bite once you grab him by the neck. He's in a bit of a stressful situation. He just wants to bite, and that's how we collect the venom. And this is how it started out. It was just what we call low-cost housing for the snakes, just a mud pot with a cloth tied over it. A mud pot is nice and cool, so the snake lives well inside there. And he's only kept for 3 or 4 weeks. We extract venom 3 or 4 times and then let him go back to the wild. And here's one of the Irlas with a cobra, and a freshly caught Russell's viper. There's Chokalingam again with a Russell's viper. And here's an Irla with a crate. The crate is one of the sort of 4 of the very venomous, let's say the most dangerous snakes in India. And they also kept catching these by the hundreds now to extract their venom, to make antivenom. This is extraction of a venom from a cobra. You see this you can actually not see the fangs very well because they're covered by a membranous sheath. But the fang is like a little hypodermic needle, a hollow tooth. There's a Russell's viper just about to give his load of venom. This is the cooperative society, how it was started out. And there's Dr. Salim Ali there. And today, this is how the setup there. It's the Irla Cooperative is located at the Madras Crocodile Bank. If you come to the Croc Bank, you get a chance to see them extracting the venom from the snakes there. The Irla Cooperative now produces almost all the venom used to make antivenom in India. So this is a really wonderful thing they're doing. They're literally saving millions of lives just by the fact that they're producing all the venom for production of antivenom. Okay, when we set up the Irla Cooperative, the wives said, well, that's great. You've got the men catching snakes and you've got them extracting venom, you've got them making money. How about us? So, yeah, well, several friends of mine and I decided we'd set up a women's society, an Irla Tribal Women's Welfare Society, which is still going strong. And it was based on tree planting in village areas in particular. And we landed a grant from the National Wasteland Development Board in those days, and that's how the whole thing started off. Now there's several hundred members, and they're planting trees all over the place, and now also growing and marketing herbal medicine. So it became a pretty big scale thing. We were planting lakhs of trees, and I got completely into this whole tree planting thing, and I almost got obsessed by it. So. Okay, there's another picture of Kali with a vine snake. And here's a picture of him. I told you earlier, once they start getting interested in finding something, they'll just disappear down a hole, and all you'll see is their feet sticking out the top. And it was for this cobra. And this was up in Rajasthan. It's the first time Kali had ever been up in Rajasthan. So it was a very wonderful learning experience for him. And here is some of the stuff that they taught me as we went along. This was a clutch of eggs and a mother crate. And I didn't know this before, but crates, as do cobras and several other species of snakes, actually after they lay their eggs, they stay with the eggs for the entire time of incubation. And that's a very good protection. You can imagine a predator who wants to eat a nice egg isn't going to mess around with a venomous crate, so it really works. Okay, now, last year, something very exciting happened. I had friends at the University of Florida who are dealing with what you may or may not have heard of, a tremendous problem with invasive Burmese pythons in Florida. Can you imagine? Back in the 60s and 70s, lots and lots of snakes were sent over from Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, and probably from India as pets in the pet trade. Literally thousands of them were sent to America. Well, a baby python is great. It's about this long, it's so beautiful, wow, how nice. The trouble is the baby python, after a couple of years, is that big. Big, fat, dangerous-looking snake, and they don't want it around the house anymore. Get it out of here. So they take it out, make sure no one's looking, and release it out in the Everglades, out in the swamp. Well, there are tens of thousands of pythons there now. So our idea came up with the idea, okay, let's take a couple of really good Irla snake hunters to Florida and show those American so-called snake catchers how to really do it, okay? And that's what we did, yeah. This is very exciting, as you can imagine, because we tried for several years to convince them to get us over there. And finally, the University of Florida and the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission said, okay, let's try it out. Okay, for the two Irlas, Masi and Vadivel, America was quite a trip, to put it mildly. So we put them through the whole thing. We took them to supermarkets, and we took them to restaurants, and we drew the line on certain things, but they had a lot of fun. Here they are at Bass Pro, and we equipped them well with good shoes and good knapsacks and all that kind of stuff. And what was amazing is it got quite a bit of publicity there, and it was wonderful to see the Americans, how they reacted. They would see Masi and Vadivel, and they're quite short compared to the average American, quite skinny compared to the average American too. But people were just so amazed, and they were just so absolutely pleased that people have come all the way from India to help them out with this terrible python problem. And sure enough, on the very first day we went out, they got a python. So we spent 2 months there, Janaki and I and Masi and Whitaker, along with colleagues whom I had known. And this was back in Florida, where I had worked when I was a kid, back in the 60s. So it was like going back home, but in a whole new context here. And the Irlas had to learn about things like alligators. When you go down next to the water, Masi, please be a little careful, because there's a very big alligator over there, and they might just crunch you up. So they got used to that. And things like iguanas. Whitaker grabbed this iguana, and he says, now what do I do with it? And the university guys who were with me said, well, they're invasives too, but what can you do? There are thousands, just release it. And Whitaker was saying, we have to release it? I mean, it's so nice, you know, so okay, release it. And we had to teach them about things like eastern diamondback rattlesnakes too, because they knew Russell's vipers here, but they didn't know the venomous snakes in the United States, and I was really worried that they would, you know, just do the wrong thing and may get bitten by one of these. These rattlesnakes grow to a huge size and they're very dangerous, but they did get a chance to see them. In fact, one day we were sitting there, this was the typical thing, at lunchtime we'd sit around, have our lunch. While we were sitting there, one of us looked down and said, hold it, everyone hold still, there's a rattlesnake. And sure enough, an eastern diamondback rattlesnake just crawled right between our feet. It was absolutely amazing. And they got a chance to pick it up and have a good look at it. But that was one of the best lessons we had. And here's about a 10-footer that we got on the way. And I don't know if you can see this very clearly, but right in the center below him is a python coiled up in the leaves there. It's not easy to see these snakes. And this was what the amazing thing was, that the Irlas were able to see snakes that most of the people there couldn't see. The hunters there were going around, they have an air-conditioned car, they have the music on, have a little case of beer, you know. Oh, there's a python. All right, jump out and catch it, you know. I said, no, this is not the way you're supposed to hunt snakes. You're supposed to look carefully, you're supposed to meticulously look for tracks and all this. And we were hoping we'd change the whole American ethic on snake hunting. I think we made a bit of a ripple in it, but they're still in their air-conditioned car. So, here's another python. And one very interesting thing, and another thing we were trying to get across to the local snake catchers there, we found a piece of shedded skin. The first thing the Irlas would do is smell it, and they'd say it's fresh. The snake is somewhere close by. He's just shed the skin, and it was a big one. And the people who were with us, they're saying, yeah, we found a few shedded skins, but it was really funny. The Irlas found dozens of shedded skins, and many of the snake hunters there, we talked to the American snake hunters, said, yeah, we saw one last year. Well, I couldn't believe it. They couldn't find shedded skins, but you have to find these signs in order to find these snakes. And they got a chance to go out in airboats and canoes, all sorts of, it was very good fun for them. Okay, the shedded skin we found, after about an hour of looking around that area, we found this 14-foot female Burmese python. And they made a big tamasha about it. They put this shedded skin all around it and stuff like that. And this was one day's catch, okay? One day, 8 pythons. And this is no joke. I mean, and this was fantastic for them, because in India, they have to have permits for every snake they catch, and the forest department is, very official, check it out, and how big is it, and what are you going to do with it? They're all very, very strict. There, it was open season. You catch as many as you want, anytime, just catch them all. So they're having a pretty good time, as you can imagine. Yep, and we got pretty big, quite a bit of news. There was a couple of TV shows and stuff like that. And I'm just waiting for the phone call to come from Florida to tell us to come back and help them finish the job. Let's see if it happens. Okay, we've got a short video. It's called Challenge. It's just a short video made about the Irlas. I think it's just 5 minutes long, and we'll have a look at that.
Throughout the world, people are taking a fresh approach to making money and putting something back into their community. Welcome to World Challenge, where people have principles and make a profit. World Challenge travels the globe to highlight businesses and projects that are about much more than simply making money, and you have the chance to decide which business personifies best practice and help them win a fabulous prize. And for the final entries on World Challenge, a serpent's tail from India. And my enemy's enemy is my friend in Kenya's greenhouses. This substance is worth more than its weight in gold. The Irula tribal people in South India are experts in collecting it from venomous snakes. The Irula used to make a living by killing poisonous snakes. There was a farmer's bounty on their scaly heads, and the skins were in demand by the fashion industry. Today they specialise in collecting the venom which is marketed to make the serum that can save lives. The turnaround in the Irula people's fortunes is due to this man who came to India from New Jersey in the United States with his family when he was just a boy.
In the bad old days of the skin industry, the Irulas would be catching these snakes to rip the skins off them. But, Here you go. It's a water snake.
Snakes. They are the stuff of most people's nightmares. In fact, most species, such as this water snake, are completely harmless to us humans.
Yeah, it's a little water snake. This is the common checkered keelback water snake around here, and this is the bitiest snake. Ouch! Look at that. It's the bitiest snake we have. Now look at him.
Of the 275 varieties found in India alone, just 4 carry enough venom to kill a human. And this is the most revered of all, the spitting cobra. Indians live cheek by fang with the snake population. Most at risk are farmers. The wheat fields and rice paddies can be a killing field. Though more humans live in rural areas than the population of Western Europe, a tiny fraction of the reptile-human encounters ends in a death. Invariably, it's the snake that comes off worst, in fact so badly that some snakes faced extinction. In 1976, the Indian government passed a law banning all hunting of snakes. It was devastating for the Irula. They had made their living killing snakes. They faced ruin and extinction as a people. Enter Romulus Whitaker. As a boy growing up in Tamil Nadu, he'd learnt most of what he knows today about snakes from their persecutors. Today, the Irula hunt snake for their venom alone, and once extracted, return the snakes back to the wild. It's a story where some of the poorest people in the world now deal in a substance more valuable than gold. The town of Thirukalukundram is not only famous for its temples, it's famous for its monkeys too. They live side by side with the townspeople, even sharing their holy places. The town is surrounded by rice paddies. Romulus Whitaker, known to all as Rom, is joining the Irula on one of their snake hunting missions. It's a daily occurrence for many of the 350 registered snake catchers.
When the Irulas come hunting, they're basically after what we call the big 4 venomous snakes. And it starts with the little saw-scale vipers, and then the Russell's vipers, whom sort of like the leaf litter. And then cobras, of course, which are in rat holes along the rice fields. And then the 4th one is the crate, has the most toxic venom of all.
The rice paddies are a favoured habitat for many snakes. They're infested with rice-consuming rodents, which occupy top spot on the snake's menu.
If it wasn't for snakes, most of this rice would probably get eaten up by rats. They say that almost 20% of India's rice production gets finished off by rats, and snakes are their main predator.
The Irula were once an itinerant forest people, but that way of life disappeared when most of their forest home was cut down.
The tribals in India are the people closest to the earth, and they're the ones who are dispossessed of the earth. The government has a policy of benign neglect for these tribals, these people are now at the very bottom of our economic ladder, that they're not part of an urban society or even rural society. They're not farmers, they're not merchants, and they're also outside the caste system.
As the forest crashed around them, the Arula were forced to hunt smaller species, rats for food and snakes for their skins.
It was totally unsustainable. Their entire operation, they were just catching all snakes in all seasons, males, females, the whole works, just removing the skin and selling the skins by the millions, as many as 10 million skins a year.
The success of the Arula proved to be their downfall. With so few snakes, the rodent population exploded and began to consume the rice harvest. When the Indian government realized what was happening, they introduced a total ban on snake hunting.
In 1976, when the ban came, we were out of a job. That was the time we really started concentrating on catching rats, not only to eat them, but also to get their rice. We took rice out of the rat holes and ate that too.
So here are my friends starting to starve to death. And this is when we hatched the idea, myself and some of the old Irlas, that they should start a venom cooperative.
The idea was to use the venom to make a serum against snake bites. Once drained, the snakes would be returned to the wild. The Arulas would have a steady income, and the farmers a ready supply of snake bite antidote. What the Arulas are really searching for are venomous snakes, and the king of these is the cobra.
Oh yes. This time it's cobra's eggs. Look at that. And this is a clutch of a dozen. And let's hope that the female's inside. All right. This is the female that laid the eggs. Whoa, beauty. What a beauty. This is not a huge cobra. Female cobras are a bit smaller than males. But it's a good size. It's got enough venom to kill all of us. She's very nervous. She's out in the daylight with us standing around. As far as she is concerned, we're all big predators about to kill her. So she wants nothing to do but to get back into a hole and rest, into the darkness. Very distinctive hissing. Yeah. It's a frightened snake.
The cobra can spit venom for up to 2 meters, blinding its enemies.
Truly a snake of legend. I mean, cobras just have that stance, that beauty, and it's just totally unlike any other snake in the world.
In a nutshell, Romulus explains the value of species diversity.
There has to be enough venom produced to make enough antivenom to save those 500,000 people or so who are getting bitten by venomous snakes every year here. But beyond that, scientists have found some amazing enzymes and other fractions within venom with coagulant and anticoagulant properties, and beyond that, even pain relief in terminal diseases. And all these fractions can be found in venoms at a much higher concentration than anywhere else in nature.
Once captured, the snakes are bagged and taken to the venom centre, located at the Chennai Crocodile Park, also started by Rom. They're kept in snake pots for 2 to 3 weeks and are periodically drained of their venom, up to 4 times, before they're returned to the wild. The procedure is carried out in public. In this way, Rom aims to help raise public awareness of the value of the snake.
Snake venom has been described by some of our colleagues as liquid gold of the Urlas. And it is kind of ironic that here are amongst the poorest people in the world producing one of the most expensive substances in the world. A gram of venom can be worth as much as 10 to 20 times a gram of gold.
The Venom Centre houses a lyophilizer that allows the Arula to freeze-dry the venom, ready for production of the life-saving anti-venom serum. Since the Snake Cooperative's inception in 1978, the Arula have caught some 80,000 snakes, producing 20 kilograms of snake venom. The venom is sold to government and private serum producers. There's a government scheme to ensure poor farmers get subsidised or free access to venom from local health centres. The Arula are paid per snake caught to cover expenses. with the profits divided between co-op members at the end of each year. As the snake hunt continues, local children are drawn to see what all the activity is about. When they see it's the Romulus hunting snakes, understandably fears resurface. Rom is keen to break down prejudice and show that many snakes, such as this large rat snake, are quite harmless and actually quite fun to be around.
I draw the line at putting it around their necks. But this is really something, because once a kid touches a snake, all those fears sort of start dissolving. I mean, not completely, but they start dissolving. They realize that it's a very nice, clean animal and very interesting. Naak paranga, kan paranga, nama madiri irukku, mansa madiri irukku. To try to change people's attitudes about snakes has been sort of my life's mission, so to speak. Luckily, we've got one great advantage in India. The majority of people in India are Hindus, of course, and to Hindus, snakes are sacred, and in particular the cobra. Strange. I mean, it's the snake which is probably responsible for more than half of the snake bite deaths in India, but the cobra is still worshipped. If we win the award, well, the Urla Venom Cooperative has been going strong for 25 years, and if we want to keep helping the Urlas and keep helping snakes and helping millions of people to survive snake bite, the whole thing has to be based on solid science, and this research is exactly what the award will let us achieve.
In part 2, it's Bug, Eat Bug.
I'm not sure, we're going in a little bit of a different direction here. I've got a short video which we made recently, which is about what happens or what should happen if someone's bitten by a snake in a village. And I think you'll be interested. It's short, but it's pretty interesting. By the way, the stuff about spitting cobras and stuff in that thing that you just heard, I don't know how that leaked in there. We don't have a spitting cobra here, so that's, someone just made a big mistake. So let's try this one.
Snakes bite more than 1 million Indians every year, and nearly 50,000 men, women, and children die. Snake bite is avoidable and curable. And no matter what people say, antivenom is the only cure for venomous snake bite. Now let's see how a person's life was saved because he got an injection of antivenom.
Muchadunga, muchadunga, thirmbadunga. திரும்புங்க கை காமி கை நீட்டுங்க ஒன்றும் இல்லை சாதாரண பூச்சிக்கடி தான் 2 நாளைக்கு மருந்து எழுதி தரேன் எல்லாம் சரியாக போயிடும்
ஓகே டாக்டர் தேங்க்யூ டாக்டர்
டார்ச் லைட் வச்சுருக்கீங்களா
இல்லை டாக்டர்
இருட்டில் போகிறீங்களே இந்தாங்க
இல்லை டாக்டர் பரவாயில்ல
என்கிட்ட இன்னொன்று இருக்குது தம்பி நாளைக்கு வந்து ரிட்டர்ன் பண்ணலாம் நீங்கள்
இல்லை டாக்டர் பரவாயில்ல பார்த்துக்கிறேன் நம்ம ஊர் தானே வரேன் டாக்டர் வாடா இப்படி போகலாம் வா இப்படி தானே வந்தோம் இப்படி போனால் சீக்கிரம் போயிடலாம் போகிற வழியில் ஒரு மெடிக்கல் ஷாப் இருக்குது வா ஏண்டா சரியான லைட் இல்லை ரோடு இல்லை எப்படி இந்த பக்கம் போகிறீங்க இதெல்லாம் எங்களுக்கு என்ன புதுசா எப்போவுமே இப்படி தான் போவாங்க நைட்டு கடை மூட்டு தனியாக பார்த்து வா எல்லாத்துக்குலாம் பயந்துட்டு இருந்தால் வாழ முடியாது நண்பா என்னாச்சு முருகா என்னடா கடிச்ச மாதிரி இருக்கு? எங்க? காலில் வலிக்குதுடா. ஏதோ கீழே கீழே என்ன தெரியலையே. பாம்புடா. எங்க பாம்பா? கொஞ்சம் இங்க வரீங்களா? ஒருத்தர் பாம்பு கடிச்சிருக்கு. ஆனா இங்க குளத்து பக்கம் போற வழியில ஒருத்தர் பாம்பு கடிச்சிருச்சுண்ணா.
தம்பி 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 என்ன போச்சு? கண் முடிச்சு பாரு. தண்ணி எடுத்துடா போ. தண்ணி தம்பி என்ன போச்சு? என்னாச்சு? எங்க கடிச்சிருக்கு? கால் ரொம்ப வீங்கிருக்கேப்பா.
யாராச்சும் டாக்டர் போய் கூட்டு வந்துடுறீங்களா?
சரி. தம்பி தம்பி
தம்பி தம்பி டாக்டர் வர மாதிரி தெரியல. நாமளும் ஏதாச்சும் பண்ணி காப்பாற்ற முடியுமா? பார்க்கலாவா?
சரிண்ணா.
கொஞ்சம் தள்ளு. அண்ணா கொஞ்சம் தள்ளுமா. கிழிஞ்ச துணி இருக்காமா?
இது வேணா எடுத்துக்கோங்க.
கொஞ்சம் கிழிச்சுதாப்பா. களைப்பிடி. நீ இந்த பக்கம் வாப்பா.
ஐயா ஐயா
பக்கத்தில் ஒருத்தர் பாம்பு கடிச்சிருச்சிங்க.
நேரம் ஆஸ்பத்திரி கூட்டிட்டு போக வேண்டியது தானே?
நீ உங்களுக்காகவே எல்லாம் காத்துக்கிட்டு இருக்காங்க.
நீங்க நேரத்தை வீணாக்கிக்கிட்டு வாங்க போலாம்.
எப்படி விஷத்தை எடுக்க போறீங்க?
வாயை வச்சு உறிஞ்சி எடுத்துடலாம். அது இல்லாமல் துணி கட்டினாலே போதும்பா.
அட என்னப்பா, பாம்பு கடிக்கலாம் பிளேடை வச்சு எடுத்தா தான் விஷம் சீக்கிரம் எடுக்க முடியும்.
சரி, யாராவது போய் கொஞ்சம் கொண்டு வாங்களேன்.
இருங்க, நானே போய் எடுத்து வரேன்.
ஏப்பா துணி ரெடியா?
தள்ளுங்க தள்ளுங்க. அவா கொஞ்சம் தள்ளுங்க. டாக்டர் வந்து பாருங்க. எங்க கடிச்சிருக்கு? முதல்ல அந்த காலில் துணி எடுங்க.
இல்லையா விஷம்?
பாம்பு கடிச்ச இடத்துல துணியை கட்டவே கூடாது. அப்படி கட்டினீங்கன்னா ரத்த ஓட்டம் நின்று போய் அந்த காலை எடுக்க வேண்டியிருக்கும். முதல்ல எடுங்க அதை.
அண்ணே பிடிங்க காலை.
ஏய் என்ன பண்ற? கையில் என்னது? முதல்ல பின்னால் போங்க. அந்த பிளேட் அவங்ககிட்ட வந்து வாங்கி தூக்கி போடுங்க. பிளேட் யூஸ் பண்ணால் இன்ஃபெக்ஷன் ஆகும் தெரியாது அவங்களுக்கெல்லாம். முதல்ல பின்னால் போங்க. வண்டி ரெடி பண்ணுங்க. ஹாஸ்பிட்டல் கூட்டிகிட்டு போகணும்.
ஐயா ஆஸ்பத்திரிக்கு போகிற அளவுக்கு எங்கள் யார்கிட்டையும் காசு இல்லை ஐயா. பக்கத்தில் தான் வைத்தியர் இருக்காரு. 50 ரூபாயில் முடிஞ்சிடும். இதோ 2 கிலோமீட்டர் தான்.
புரியாமல் பேசாதீங்க. கடிச்சது விஷப்பாம்பாக இருந்தால் அதுக்கு மருந்து ஹாஸ்பிட்டலில் தான் கிடைக்கும். ஆன்டிவெனம் மருந்தால தான் அவனை குணப்படுத்த முடியும்.
புரியுதுங்கய்யா. ஆனால் நம்ம ஊர் வைத்தியர் கொடுக்குற மருந்துலேயே பல பேருக்கு குணமாயிடுது.
அப்படி குணமாயிருக்குன்னா ஒன்று அது விஷம் இல்லாத பாம்பு கடியாக இருக்கும், இல்லை விஷப்பாம்பே கடிச்சிருக்கலாம். ஆனால் அப்போது அதோடைய பல்லில் விஷம் இருந்திருக்காது. இந்த மாதிரி எவ்வளவோ காரணங்கள் இருக்குது. ஒரு பாம்பு கடிச்சதுன்னா எவ்வளோ விஷம் ஏறி இருக்குன்னு யாராலையும் சொல்ல முடியாது. டக்குன்னு ஹாஸ்பிட்டல் கூட்டிகிட்டு போய் ஆன்டிவெனம் மருந்து ஏற்றினா தான் குணமாகும். சீக்கிரமாக போய் வண்டிக்கு ஏற்பாடு பண்ணுங்க. போங்க. புரியுதா? எந்த வண்டியாக இருந்தாலும் பரவாயில்ல. கடிச்சு எவ்வளோ நேரம் ஆச்சு?
ஒரு 15 minutes இருக்கும் டாக்டர்.
இதோ வண்டி வந்துருச்சு போல் இருக்கு. வாங்க அவரை தூக்குங்க. வாங்க இப்படி. முருகா அந்த காலை மட்டும் ஆட்டாத. விஷம் ஏறிடும். பயப்படக்கூடாது. சரியா? நீங்களும் ஏறுங்க. நீங்களும் ஏறுங்க.
இல்லை சொல்லிட்டீங்க அவங்க போயிடுவாங்க.
இல்லை இல்லை அவர் மயக்கம் போட்டு விழுந்தாருன்னா அப்புறம் யார் தூக்கிட்டு போகிறது? நீங்கள் தான் போகணும். வாங்க. போங்க. பார்த்து போங்க.
ஐயா
என்ன முருகா எப்படி இருக்க?
நல்லா இருக்கேன் ஐயா. காலையில் டாக்டர் டிஸ்சார்ஜ் பண்ணாங்க.
காலை கம்மி. டார்ச் லைட் இனிமேலாவது எடுத்துகிட்டு போகல.
ஐயா அப்போ இனிமேல் பாம்பு கடிச்சா நாங்கள் என்னையா பண்ணுறது?
பாம்பு கடிச்சா உடனே ஹாஸ்பிட்டல் கூப்பிட்டு போயிடுங்க. நீங்களா கையில் ஒரு வைத்தியத்தை எடுத்துக்காதீங்க. அதே மாதிரி பயப்படக்கூடாது. அப்படி பாம்பு கடிச்சு நீங்கள் பயந்தீங்கன்னா ரத்த ஓட்டம் அதிகமாகும்.
ஏயா நம்ம ஊர் நாட்டு வைத்தியர்களுக்கெல்லாம் விஷப்பாம்பு கடிச்சிச்சுன்னா குணப்படுத்துறதுக்கு மருந்தே இல்லையா என்ன?
ஒரு விஷப்பாம்பு நம்மளை கடிச்சா அதுக்கு மருந்து ஆஸ்பத்திரியில் தான் கிடைக்கும். அந்த மருந்து தான் ஆன்டிவெனம். இந்த ஆன்டிவெனம் மருந்தால் தான் விஷத்தை எதிர்க்க முடியும். இனிமேலாவது பார்த்து நடந்துக்குங்க, புரியுதா?
ஐயா தேங்க்ஸ் ஐயா.
A person in Murugan's village knew what to do in case of snake bite, and more importantly, what not to do. Let's rewind. Murugan and Anand did the right thing. They moved away from the snake to avoid another bite. Stay calm. Remember, most snake bites are not fatal. Don't waste time. Don't go looking for the snake. Don't try to kill it. Get to the hospital. Do not tie a tourniquet. It stops the flow of blood, and the limb might have to be amputated. Do not cut the wound. Sucking is useless. Cutting, squeezing, slapping, or shaking the limb could be very dangerous. Keep the entire snake-bitten limb still. This slows the spread of venom. This is most important. Do not move the snake-bitten hand or leg. Rest it until you can get to a hospital. Call an ambulance. Use any means you can to get to a hospital. But don't wait for a car or an auto. Murugan used a motorbike. And this is the most important reason for Murugan's survival. He got the life-saving antivenom. The snake's venom glands are very much like hypodermic syringes, and their fangs are like needles. The snake injects venom into the body, and the only way you can counteract that injection is by an injection of antivenom. The injection of antivenom into the body neutralizes the venom which was injected by the snake. There is no other cure for snake bite. Traditional medicine, herbal remedies, snake stones, and other bogus remedies do not cure snake bite. Get the patient to the hospital fast and get antivenom.
So I just think that I'm a guy who has always liked snakes, but snakes are responsible for almost 50,000 human deaths every year in India. So it's kind of up to me and up to the people who work with me to try to do something about it. And these videos are a start, but we've got a pretty big education program going now. We're starting in Tamil Nadu and spreading it throughout the country. So join in. Thanks very much, and it's a real pleasure to be here.
Thank you, sir. We all really enjoyed your talk. I now invite Ms. Janaki Lenin to please come forward for the second part of the Luminary lecture.
I don't have a presentation. I think Rom made up for both of us. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about something bigger, big animal. So India's got a lot of people, and when they run in, when they confront wildlife, it never goes well. Either they die or animals die, and it becomes a PR disaster for conservation. Like Rom was saying, how do you preach conservation? How do you tell people, oh, you've got to save leopards or tigers or elephants when they're out, when they kill people? So the predominant solution that people suggest is to separate people and wildlife, to keep them in two different locations so they don't meet, there is no confrontation, so that nothing wrong ever happens. And that is the larger model of conservation. So what we do is borrow the idea from the West. We create these sanctuaries, parks, and say these are for wildlife. Now what that does is create this impression, if this is an exclusive wildlife zone, then all the rest of it is exclusive human zone. So what happens when there are wildlife in exclusive human zones? What do? The word they use is stray. Now the word, what does that mean? It means that the animal has moved far out of its range, it doesn't belong there, it's lost, it doesn't know its way. So the solution automatically suggests itself that you take the animal and put it where it belongs. Where does it belong? In that exclusive wildlife zone. So, and that's what the Forest Department does throughout the country. They trap leopards, for instance. I'm going to be talking about two species, leopards and elephants, because these are the two animals that are in these exclusive human zones and causing a lot of conflict. So leopards are very easy to trap. A friend of mine who's a wildlife veterinarian told us this incident. So he set up, they were transporting a leopard trap from one forest to another. It was late at night, and the driver was falling asleep, so they stopped at a tea shop. They went in, must have been about 20 minutes, no more than that. They come out, and there's a leopard sitting inside the trap. They had no bait, just somebody had forgotten to neutralize the trap, and that was enough to trap a leopard. Well, they let it go, but that's just to highlight how ridiculously simple it is to trap a leopard. So this is what the Forest Department does. They trap leopards from here and put them there, and that's where the media report stops. It was successful translocation, the animal was saved, it served the cause of conservation, but is that where the story ends? What I'm going to tell you is what happens afterwards. So Junnur is this place. It's a rural valley in Maharashtra. It's all agricultural fields, no forest anywhere around. There are vineyards, there are agricultural fields of sunflower, sugarcane, corn, crops like that. And it also has an array of radio telescopes that point to the sky to look for alien life. So it's this very interesting juxtaposition of an old way of life and a modern life. So suddenly, about 15 years ago, 30 women and children were killed, and about 50 were injured by leopards. And nobody knew why. The Forest Department was saying, oh, there's lack of prey in the forest, but the forest is somewhere else. And conservationists were accusing the Forest Department of giving away land for some irrigation projects. So they were saying loss of habitat. And a friend of mine, Vidya, her husband was an astronomer at that radio telescope place, and they had a 3-year-old daughter at that time. And a small child was killed by a leopard, not even a kilometer from where they lived. And she's a trained biologist, and she was taking time off to be a mother, and so she decided she was going to check what was happening. And what she found, the way she put it was mismanagement. Because according to the Wildlife Act, leopards and elephants they have among the animals with the highest protection. And what it says is if it is a danger to human life, only then can it be trapped. And that's what the Forest Department was doing. But the trouble is, how do you define danger to human life? If there was a leopard walking through Vellore city, you might say it's danger to human life. Somebody else might say, no, that's not danger to human life. It has to walk through CMC campus. Then it's a danger to human life. I might say, no, that's not danger. It has to kill 3 people in 6 months, and only then is it a danger to human life. So it's a very subjective way how you define danger to human life. So in this case, what had happened was this forest official had trapped 150 leopards within a year and moved them from out of this valley to a forest. And what we don't realize is territory is very, very important to all animals. So without a territory, they don't win mates. Without a territory, they can't rear their offspring. So it's central to the very life. If they move out of that territory, they're not going to survive. So here we are taking leopards from where they belong. They probably lived there for all their lives. And you're taking it and putting it in a forest where it has never, it doesn't even know what a forest is. It's never seen it before. And it's a very traumatic experience for a leopard. So you trap the leopard, and it's immediately surrounded by hundreds of people taking selfies and poking and prodding and yelling and screaming, and a leopard has never been near so many people before. So it tries to get away. What does it do? It bites the bars, it rips its claws, breaks its canine, bashes its head. It's in a very bad state. It's totally traumatized. And then the forest department will wait to hear, the staff will wait to hear from their superiors what to do with this leopard. It might take 2 days. They might feed it some bits of meat, but it's not in any shape or form to eat. That's not what is on its mind at that time. So then they will put it in this forest, and the forest has its own leopards. And those leopards know how to avoid tigers, for instance. Tigers kill leopards. They don't allow them to live in their territory. So leopards have to live being very fearful of tigers. And those forest leopards know where to find food, where deer gather. But our village leopard has never seen a tiger, doesn't know what a tiger is, doesn't know what a deer is, doesn't know where to go find the deer. All it has grown up eating were dogs and goats and pigs. So just to highlight, let me tell you what it means. Like if you have domestic cats, I'm sure a lot of you might have, and in India they're free-ranging, right? They'll drink milk in one house, and those people might call it Blackie or something, and for dinner it'll go to the next house and it'll eat fish or whatever, and they might call it Jimmy, and it'll go down the end of the street, and they might feed it some biscuits or something, and they'll have a completely different name for it. And in between, if there is a tree in the right spot, it'll spray it and to mark its territory. And it does this circuit every day. It doesn't get lost. You can take it and put it somewhere else in the next neighborhood. It has never seen that neighborhood, but it'll come right back because it knows where its home is. And that's what leopards do. So you put it in the forest where it doesn't know how to survive. It's not going to stay there. And it might even, if it's a female leopard, it might even have cubs hidden in the sugarcane field. So she's going to come back to her cubs. And these forests might be 40 kilometers away or 100 kilometers away. And it's not forested all the way back to their home. They're going to have to cross highways, they're going to have to swim across rivers, they're going to walk through a lot of villages and fields. And these are traumatized leopards, remember? They haven't eaten, they're not thinking right. So when they're crossing a highway, they may not even be looking where they're going. They're so intent on where they are going, they're not watching for trucks. They can get run over. They can hide out in a village waiting for the coast to be clear before they can walk. And if someone surprises them, it will lash out and the person's dead. So from a situation where you didn't have a real conflict, all you had was a leopard in the wrong place, now you have a dead person. Now you've created conflict. And that was exactly what was happening in Junar. So when Vidya presented her study results to the forest department, they weren't really agreeable because this is what they've done all their lives. And it took a lot of effort for them to understand why you have to pay attention to cat biology to manage leopards, that you have to see leopards as territorial animals. You can't just take leopards from one place and put them there and expect that they will sit there like some sack of potatoes or something. So eventually in Junner, they caught some 60 leopards and put them in a rescue center. They're still there. And that was how that problem was sorted out. But while doing this work, Vidya heard about this neighboring village where people were living with leopards with no problem, and we were all wondering, is it possible that leopards could live with people? Even though we say that leopards, when we see them outside in villages, that they are straying, they're not, really. We've known that since the 19th century, really, that leopards can be village. There's such a thing called village leopards. Some of these British writers call them village leopards. When you think about it, it's perfect for a leopard. There are no tigers. They don't have to watch their backs all the time. There's plenty of dogs and pigs and goats for them to eat. They just need a little bit of shelter, and any cover will do. So it's made to order. So when Vidya went to Akoli to study how, thanks very much. So she thought, okay, she found leopards, cats everywhere. In all the paths, going to the main road, on the main road, in the marketplace, there were leopards, cats everywhere. And she was imagining, how does this work? Maybe people walk through these paths during the daytime, and after they go to sleep, the leopards come out. And so she set up these camera traps. These are these surveillance type cameras that are triggered by movement or body temperature or some trigger like that. So when she set up the camera traps, it was amazing because rural Maharashtra, like rural Tamil Nadu, gets three-phase power supply only at night. So the farmers were going out at 9 or 10 p.m. to turn on their water pumps for irrigating their crops. And they were bumping into leopards all the time. So there would be a time stamp on one of a farmer going by. 2 minutes later, a leopard's walking by. And it was amazing. The farmers, when she talked to them, they said, yeah, we know, we see them sometimes. We just wait for them to walk away, and then we continue on our paths. So what about their livestock? Aren't they worried about losing their animals? They said, oh, no, we just build nice, strong enclosures, and at night the goats are happy to sleep in there, and the leopards leave them alone. So what are the leopards eating then? Pigs and dogs that don't belong to anybody, feral animals. And this field assistant was saying, the boy leopards like pigs and the girl leopard like dogs. So they had it all sorted out. And even now, I mean, it's amazing. You go there, people know all about leopards, and they'll say, yeah, it's there. And an interesting thing is that poor people will keep their animals tightly guarded, and they'd sleep outside. And the next morning on the dusty road, you'll see leopard pug marks right there. I mean, and the children are sleeping out. And it's amazing because when a conflict happens, people say, in case of mistaken identity, like people are squatting in the bushes and the leopard doesn't know the difference between prey animal and people, and that's why it made a mistake and killed somebody. In Akoli, those leopards know what a human is, even whether he's squatting or not. So how do these leopards know that? It's because they've had a long history of living with people. They know, they've watched us for even longer than we've watched them. They know our habits, they know what we do, they know what is prey and what is not prey. So if we don't understand this, and if you try and do management, then it's going to backfire in a big way. So in a lot of cases, conflict is created, man-made conflict, literally, because you're not respecting their space, you're just transporting them like lumps of potatoes. And the next thing that Vidya did was she used radio collars, and there was this, the female leopard she named Lakshai. She had a litter in a sugarcane field in front of the main entrance of a school. And through the entire time that the leopard was there with her cubs, Vidya was like, her heart was in her mouth. So can you imagine a worse scenario? Here is a mother overprotective of her cubs, and there are all these kids running back and forth. I mean, it's a situation made for conflict, right? Nothing ever happened. Nobody even knew that the leopard was there except Vidya and the team. And then the cubs grew up and the leopard walked off with the cubs. Nothing happened. So I think the thing that people don't realize is that when you move leopards, that's not the only leopard there. There are others. Because what happens in leopard society is, like Lakshai with her cubs, assuming they survive to adulthood, the daughter will live close by. She will set up her territory on the edge of her mother's territory. So female leopards are surrounded by their mothers, aunts, sisters, half-sisters, cousins, grandmother, great aunts. So it's like a landscape of sisterhood. They're surrounded by their relatives. The boys have to get out. So they wander far looking for territory. And territory is not like waiting there for somebody to come and occupy. They're going to have to fight other leopards for it. And sometimes, most often, they die. They won't find that territory. And the only chance they stand is if the leopard with the territory is injured or sick, then they will kill that leopard and take the territory. I know it sounds brutal, but that's the way it is. So if you take a leopard from here to put it there, there's lots of desperate leopards ready to take that spot. So what have you achieved? Nothing. You've removed one leopard and you've got probably two more in its place. Now, I'm going to talk about elephants. I'm running through quickly because it's already been a long time. So elephants in India have less than a quarter of their habitat is protected in these exclusive wildlife zones. The rest of it is plantations, village forests, unclassified forests, all areas where people use. So you would think, elephants, they are such big animals, they're going to have to eat, they're going to compensate for not having enough habitat by eating crops, right? It's not always the case. It's like people. So if I were to put a bag of money on your doorstep, it's up to you. You can take the money if you want. Not all of you will take it. Some of you won't. It's the same with elephants. Not all of them eat crops. And it's amazing because you might ask why. Because eating crops, they get more nutrition, they get bigger, they make more babies. There's everything going for it. Why would a stupid elephant be so stupid as to not eat crops? For one thing, it might not even know it's edible. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I'll give you an instance. So in Yala, in Sri Lanka, southeast Sri Lanka, there is this lovely park called Yala. There was an elephant there that was really, really sick, and the wildlife department decided they were going to feed this elephant to give him a little boost, so then they could give him antibiotics. So somebody went to the store and got a whole bunch of bananas and came and fed the elephant, and the elephant refused to touch it. They tried really hard to feed him these bananas. He just would not touch it until one of the researchers said, you know what, he's a forest elephant, he doesn't know bananas are edible. So they went out and cut some palm fronds and stuff that they knew he would have eaten, and then he ate that. So that's just a reflection of how we just assume, animals are so dumb, you put something in front of them, they're just going to eat it. It's not the case. And the other reason they may not eat is because they're weighing their risks. So people guard their crops. They're not going to let some elephant come and eat it. They'll get harassed, they'll get shot at. So a lot of elephants prefer not to face humans. So there are, which is better, getting crops and putting on weight or getting shot at? If it's not worth their while, if they are risk averse, they will not try to eat crops. So an elephant needs about 200 to 250 kilograms of forage a day per elephant. So that's a lot of food. And that, just like with the leopard story, the typical thing they say about elephants is why is there elephant conflict? Oh, loss of habitat and habitat degradation. Just last week there was this study which made me laugh because it said elephants prefer degraded forest. They love people coming and chopping and making lots of little secondary vegetation because they get lots of food there. So when you have a misconception of what is the problem, your solution is also misplaced. Because these are the forests that are degraded, that get diverted for highways, for setting up factories, and those are the forests that elephants really value the most. And even when you say that, elephants are compensating for loss of something by going to crops, then what do? We decide to prevent them from eating that. So essentially, we are supposedly starving them, right? So they've lost forest here, so they're going to crops to compensate, and then you're preventing them from eating there. What are they supposed to do? So it really, the whole thing is a little bit misplaced. So a lot of elephant conflict. I spent a couple of years looking at elephant conflict, trying to understand what was going on. In the 80s, they were promoting electric fences. They said this is a surefire way of preventing elephants from eating crops. But the thing is, elephants don't like anything that's new. They give it time. So here are the project guys who've set up the electric fences, waiting to see what the elephants are doing, and here are the elephants watching the electric fence to see if it's going to jump up and bite them. So it's a waiting game. So after 3 years, the project say, success, we'll promote electric fences everywhere, and they go write their reports and say, this is a great success. By that time, elephants have figured out electric fences are nothing, that if they have tusks, they can, rip them up without getting shocked and walk right through, or they topple trees over it and walk over it. They come up with all kinds of creative ways of getting through electric fences. Now they've started this new thing, chili fences, getting these really Bujjalokia, they call it in Nagaland. It's really, really hot. And you can't even make a masala with it. Your hands will become blistered. So you have to wear gloves, you have to wear a mask. So for the project, the field assistants did all this and gave it to the farmers to try. And you can't just apply it on ropes and string it up and leave it. Because if it rains, you have to do it again. After 1 week in the sun, you have to do it again. It's a constant process of applying this chili thing. And after 1 year, they said, it's a great success. No elephant came by. Elephants were just watching to see what is this new thing that they've put up now. And you give them time, they'll figure it out. It's just really, really, we don't give them enough credit. They're a large, intelligent animal. They eventually just figure it out. So we have to look at the whole landscape to see what elephants need. Do they have what it takes to fill their bellies? And if they don't, and if they're going into crops, what is it that we can do to help elephants? And that is going to indirectly help people as well. But that kind of thinking isn't happening. And in it's like, if you look at what kind of people are meeting what kind of elephants, it's the marginalized in both, because the richer farmers get the best land, which is usually far away from elephants. So it's the marginalized farmers who get that edge habitat. And it's the same with elephants. The dominant elephants get all the riverside forests because that's the best habitat. And all the elephants that are lower in the hierarchy are pushed to the edges to go fight it out with the people. So you have two marginalized communities of elephants and farmers headbutting each other. And it's the difficulty is that it's mostly about farm economics. A farmer goes into debt long time before he even sows his crops. And if an elephant goes and destroys it, he's really finished. But if you look at across India, it's not just elephants and leopards. You've got tigers, you've got lions living in mango orchards in Gujarat. So there are these Maldari guys herding their cows in lion territory. All they have is one little stick. If a lion comes too close, they go bonk on its head and it goes away. And all our African lion researchers come and see this and they are amazed. How come you're not killing each other? How is this even possible that lions and people are living so close together? And then we have Dangars who are pastoralists in the Deccan. They bring their livestock from the Konkan coast. They march 300 kilometers after the monsoon to the Deccan. And if they didn't make that march with their livestock for the after the monsoon, stay the monsoon in the Deccan and go back, there would be no wolves in the Deccan Plateau. They are entirely subsidizing all the wolves in the Deccan Plateau. There's nothing else for those animals to eat. So all I'm saying is that what you see in the newspapers of this man-animal conflict is an aberration. Throughout India, every day, people are adjusting their lives, sacrificing a bit of their livelihoods, a bit of their income to live with animals. And we don't recognize it. We don't realize what we have. In the States, if there is one wolf that shows up in a state, there is a big outcry. And wolves are coming back now in the States, and they don't know what to do about it, and they are having open season hunting. In India, we have people living with wolves, and we don't even give them credit for subsidizing their existence. And they're doing this without any help from conservationists, without any help from biologists or the government. They are doing it because of their own sense of sharing the landscape with other creatures. It could be any reason. It could be because they think the animals belong to them or God. And that's why snakes kill more people than leopards and tigers and lions and everything put together. But nobody kills a snake in a public place and parades it around or sets it on fire. Sometimes that's what they do with leopards, as you see in YouTube or the TV. So that's possibly one reason. And the other is the size of the animal. So you look at when an elephant has walked through a field, you can see an elephant has been there because you can see these footprints the size of dinner plates, and balls of dung lying everywhere, and what the elephant hasn't eaten is trampled all over. But you look at the same field and you try to estimate how many rats are living there. It's impossible, and rats are probably, 20% did you say, of India's crops? Yeah, that's much more than all the nilgai and elephants and monkeys and everything put together, and nobody is making a big hue and cry. Nobody is calling that wildlife conflict. So it's a whole way of looking at it. It's just, and I think the problem is because we don't do anything about it, we take it for granted, and we are right now in danger of losing this tolerance of living with animals. And the challenge of living with wildlife is still yet to come. We haven't really seen the worst of it. What you're seeing still right now is the best of it. And it's not a question of population numbers either. Everyone keeps saying, oh, India is so populated, family planning, this, that, and the other. But look at Europe or the US or any Asian country. Which other country has our population density and all its wildlife? Any ideas? China? Thailand? Cambodia? Indonesia? Huh? They eat it all. Yeah, so that's what we have. We don't realize this. So the take-home message I have for you is it's not population numbers that matter, it's the amount of space you have in your hearts for animals. Thank you.
I'm sure you must have enjoyed that set of brace of talks here. I'm really, really privileged to be here with you, Rom and Janaki. I mean, I've known Rom for a long, long time. I first met him in 1972 or so, just after the snake park was formed, because one of my classmates wanted to buy a green snake, and he convinced me to come and get one from Rom. And I remember the passion that Rom displayed, and he looked very much the same as some of his early snaps when he showed us how to look after the snake, and he stroked it and made us promise that we would not hurt it. Of course, this poor friend of mine had not told his parents about the snake. The snake was in a shoebox in his house, and 4 days later it escaped. No one has seen that snake again. Interesting, because Rom himself, I'm told, had a python under his bed in Cody's school for 4 years, and nobody found out about it. Anyway, many years later, when we were in CMC, I think Anand Zak got me involved with Rom again, when Rom helped us set up a national snake bite study. The amount of work that Rom has done and is continuing to do for snake bites is fabulous, but that's not the end of it. He's done such a lot of work with setting up the Andaman Nicobar Trust. There's a lot of man-human conflict as far as crocodiles are concerned. Some of you may have read about the fact that this state of increasing crocodile attacks and Janaki wrote about, that's when I first heard about her. In 2010, Anna and I had gone to Havelock Island 2 days after a croc attack, and Janaki wrote about that. So I was there when Patrick, your friend, who came from South Africa to help, was trying to catch this crocodile, and you must read about the work because her work is all over the internet. And all your columns that you wrote for The Hindu is now compiled in a beautiful book, My Husband and Other Animals, available on Amazon, 50% discount, delivered in 2 days. Please buy this book.
I didn't set him up to that.
Well, I have the book and I forgot to bring it. I wanted you to autograph it. I'll try and do that. Now, it's open to all of you to ask questions of this wonderful couple. Anyone there? Mics, please introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, I'm Nutan here. I'm crazy about snakes actually. I like snakes, I feel that they are really beautiful. I don't know how many of you will believe that I said. Okay, so we had our campus in Rusa, and most who all are from Rusa, they'll know that we have many snakes there, and we don't know how to handle these things. Once it happens, it came inside our hostel. It was small, but it was poisonous. I mean venom. It was poisonous, and we didn't know what to do. And we called the security, and they killed it. After 5 seconds and all, we all realized that it was really harsh of them killing. We could have just released it outside. So we wanted to know, many of our staffs and all, we don't know how to handle it. We know they are there, they are dangerous, and we don't have that sensitivity towards these wildlife. So what you would like to say about this?
Well, that's kind of a typical problem, isn't it? Because first of all, I think if all of us are interested in wildlife, it's kind of behooves us to buy Rom Whitaker's snake book. No, this is just a plug. No, what I'm trying to say is we should learn which are the venomous snakes. There are very few venomous snakes in India, as you probably know. So learning to identify which are venomous and which aren't. The second thing is snakes are certainly not interested in biting people. They're interested only in staying far away from people. If by accident they do happen to come around, it's usually fairly easy to leave the door open or leave the window open and they'll go. And these days, there's usually someone fairly nearby who knows something about snakes. I've noticed that snakes have become very popular. Snake rescuing has become very popular. And I'm sad to say that all the rescuers aren't really that great at it, but the fact is that there is a lot of interest, and you can, first of all, you can educate yourself which snakes are non-venomous or which are venomous. And the second thing is to just give the snake an exit point. Let him get out and he will get out. That's the best I can say right now. Otherwise, you please come and we'll teach you all about snakes.
I would like to come.
So just as a counterpoint to that, in Canada they have a mass hibernation of garter snakes. They are not very big. They are about that big, but they are in the hundreds of thousands. And in June, they come out of hibernation. And in that particular area, they're in everyone's houses. I mean, it's not a question of one snake. There are lots of them. So they just take a broom and sweep them out of the house. There's nothing else you can do. If you were to catch them one by one, you'd spend all your life doing it. It's just too many.
Yes.
Does an elephant's intelligence have anything to do with the size of its brain?
Wow. I'd like to say yes, but the latest research is showing there's no relationship between brain size and intelligence. So you did catch it, yeah.
I'm Beslel, finally a medical student. Doctors who are trained in South India, when they go to North Indian Mission Hospital, have this complaint of antivenoms generally don't work in a, generally doesn't have good efficiency like in the way that they see in South India. And when we catch snakes from southern India, and there will be antigenic variation in the snakes in northern part of India, how will we counter that issue? Because all the snake that we use for antivenom protection is from South India.
You know, this is a huge problem which is being focused right now by several people, including researchers, including ourselves. And actually, I'm in the, we've got a project at the Croc Bank now called Snake Conservation and Snake Bite Mitigation. And one aspect of it is us going to 4 corners of India and collecting venom samples and doing the tests which find out whether the antivenom is working or not. And it's various researchers, including at the University of Mysore, have found that just Russell's viper venom, for example, differs quite a bit from West Bengal to Tamil Nadu. So you're very right in saying, well, the answer to that, obviously, is to make an antivenom pan-India, basically by pooling venoms from the 4 corners of India and making an antivenom. It sounds easy, it's not easy. Wildlife is a state subject, and getting the permits to collect venom from different parts of the country is still going to take some time. But it's on the anvil. We're aware of it, and people are doing something about it. It's going to take time, though.
I'm glad you asked that question, because you've got Anand Zachariah here, and he's also been working with this project here. Yeah. You also have a visitor today who was part of the project with Anand, and we were involved in, Vishal Santra. He's got permission now from Himachal and a few other states to collect venom from those states, so that hopefully it won't be only Rom and his Irulas who are trying to envenomate the whole, country. Unenvenomate.
Good one.
That's the problem that we have, that the Irulas get the venom from snakes around Mahabalipuram, and that's supposed to serve the whole country. And not only India, they're exporting the same stuff to Africa. They say Achis carinatus antivenom, but it's not the African Achis. And Sri Lanka now has hopefully got their own antivenom project going. So your question is absolutely right. Species differ across the subcontinent in different parts of the world, and Rom and lots of people are helping out. So all final year medical students, please read up on all this and talk to Anand, because you guys are going to go out with snake bites. Any other questions?
Ever since I watched the documentary on the king when I was in school, the king cobra shot in Agumbe, that was on my bucket list to visit Agumbe. 2 years ago, I got to do that. I met Dr. Anup, who is the field research director there. Right. So interesting to know that a large part of your conservation, which you hadn't really mentioned about too much, was education of the local population. So it was a real highlight when we heard that has gone to the extent that when a king cobra, which is not like a small snake that Ms. Lenin had described earlier, is a really large snake which is definitely venomous, would enter a person's house, and they'd call the research station early in the evening to say that this snake is there. Not to ask them to come immediately, but to say that it's taking up a lot of space, and if it didn't clear out by the next morning, to come by and clear it out. So that I really like to appreciate the amount of education that has gone to the local population. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't suggest the same thing to other species of snake. I'm sure you wouldn't as well. But my question more specifically is, how far have we gone with access to help in regard to human-snake interaction, and what our way forward would be when a person comes in contact with a snake, and what would be the approach to be? Not, you'd mentioned about bites. I'm going even before that to the point of contact, which is undesirable.
Well, that's really very good points, and I'm just so pleased that at what has happened in Agumbe. from the attitudes of 10, 12 years ago when we first started working, compared then to what's happening now. The people are so tolerant, it's unbelievable. And some of the arguments that we've put in there, I thought it was just tongue-in-cheek at the beginning, but now it's real. King cobras are, as you know, snake eaters, and they eat a lot of vipers, a lot of cobras, and a lot of kraits. And these are the snakes which are killing thousands of people. So, you know, everyone should have a king cobra in their backyard, obviously.
Obviously.
But no, it's a really good point. And nowadays, as far as other snakes are concerned, a lot of the rescuers, for example, whom we're doing training programs with, we're saying, look, tell people that that's a non-venomous snake I've just found in your backyard. It's a rat snake. It eats rats, and rats are really destructive. And it's not going to hurt you because it's harmless, and then, you know, perhaps show them a few pictures and this and that. And the other argument is, if I remove this rat snake, chances are another snake is going to move in. Very much what Janaki just said about leopards. Another snake is going to take that niche, and the next snake might be a cobra. It might be venomous. So there are ways of getting people to, you know, listen to you and listen to common sense like that. And I think, you know, spreading the word like this is really helping a lot. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
Yeah. Good evening. Thank you for such interesting lecture. I'm Nidhi. I am an HS intern working in the tech department. My question specifically being, for both of you. Ms. Janaki, thank you for reminding me, because I'm from Maharashtra. So we have Tadoba Andheri Tiger Reserve, where most of the tigers, you know, from the western coalfields, they usually come and occupy most of the quarters, and they end up being to the homes on the terraces of the people. We usually face the same problem where the animals get traumatized of seeing people, and you know, we basically chase them out, or you know, as publics, we try to do what is best in our part, and then later the forest authority come up. My question specifically being, what has changed both of your perspective towards wildlife? Like, how have you, like, you know, got into the interest of the conservation of this? Yeah.
How did you guys become as crazy as you are?
I blame it on him.
It's her. It's her.
Excuse me. I never did anything with wildlife before I met you, so.
Yeah, it's called insane obsession. No,
sorry, we are not being very articulate.
No.
Did you expect a serious answer? Really? Yeah?
I just got influenced by, because you said that your friend had done a study on that. So yeah, this reminded me of my place, that's why.
Yeah, so when I got my head out of reptiles, I wanted to see how other wildlife was doing. So I was trying to contact other people. So I got in touch with people working with tigers and leopards and all the big charismatic mammals that Rom is very disdainful of.
Anything with legs I don't trust.
Thank you.
So I spend a lot of my time writing about science and talking to researchers and reading papers. So the whole train of my thought and what I do now has changed considerably. It's fascinating. So the more you get into it, the more it sucks you in. So
I think one of the wonderful things about Janaki's involvement with these other things is it pulls me in there too. And I think the biggest thing I'm learning is that we totally underestimate animal intelligence. We haven't got a clue what they're thinking. They are so far ahead of what we think they are. Even crocodiles and snakes, which all have this sort of glassy-eyed stare, but there's really a lot going on in there. And there's a big thought process going on in there. It's almost scary.
Yes, you had.
I've been a really big fan of your work ever since I was a little kid. But I have this one question. Would translocating Asiatic cheetahs from Iran to India to revive India's extinct cheetah population, would it be a good idea?
Yeah, it is. That's a
So, if it was going to be a vehicle to conserve grasslands, it could be worth it. But grasslands are our worst faring landscape. They are called wastelands. They are being dug up, they are being planted, they are not being looked after as well as they should be. They are as good, they are an ecosystem just like the rainforest. And we are not paying as much attention to grasslands. So if you're going to get cheetahs at great expense and there is no habitat for them, it's not a very good investment. So I fail to see. Okay, let me qualify that. I like the idea of bringing cheetahs back because that's the only mammal we've lost in the last couple of centuries. So it would be nice to get them back. But the caveat is we should be looking after their habitat first. And if we are not, then what's the point?
Hello?
Just one. Next. Yeah, carry on. Okay, go ahead.
I've got few questions. Mr. Romulus, I know you like snakes a lot, but this is one crazy question though. Have you ever slept with one?
Slept with one. Probably many times, but that's a really good question. The trouble is, okay, imagine this. I mean, a snake is in the bed where you're sleeping also, and chances are that he wants to move at night, and you don't want particularly to move, so you have to keep nudging him, shut up, keep quiet, stay still. So it'd be pretty hard.
From the way he's answered that question, it's obvious that he has. Next. What's the next one?
This is to Mrs. Janaki.
No, I haven't slept with a snake.
No, I was going to ask you if we provide a habitat to elephants, particularly male elephants, because they become sometimes very angry when cut down trees and cut down their habitat. If we make one habitat for them with their own supplies, like don't cut trees and no poaching around, do you think they would be satisfied with it, or would they want to just come back to the place where they keep barging into the fields, sugarcane fields, and encountering humans?
Okay, so you're talking about creating a whole new habitat?
Yeah, a whole new habitat.
That's tough. Like all that stuff I was telling you about territory works for elephants too. So you can't really take an animal out of its territory.
But what if you provide everything it needs, like literally everything?
That's what you think. The elephant has to be happy with what it finds, and usually, like if I give you a home somewhere else and say come and live here, it has everything, would you live there? You'll want your family, your friends, that sweet shop down the road. You want all those things. You have no idea what an elephant wants.
Okay, I must stop you because this gentleman needs to speak and we have to close. Thank you for your interest. I'm sure you can interact with Janaki after this.
Good evening, sir. I'm Dr. Vijay Govindaraj. Just yesterday evening, there was a snake in the office, and one of my brothers telling there's a snake, and the first guy, because I like wild, and he's a king, Romulus, sir, and I'm like a hero there, trying to catch the snake live and leave it somewhere, and there are 6 people standing behind me with a stick to kill it. And I say, kill it. They killed it. So it's very tough, because to catch a snake, is there a kit, sir? Is there any kit to catch snake, wear gloves? I'm just standing there like a wildlife well-wisher. No, I'm just telling you the fate all of us are going to face. There's a snake there, and they're all well-wishers who have come, wildlife well-wishers sitting here, trying to save a snake, and there are 10 people behind you with a bat to hit you also. Hit me also. Get out from here before it bites you and kills you. I'm seeing stars. Romulus, where are you? You are catching king cobra to catch a water snake. They're not allowing me. That too, it's a small snake. They're telling kill it when it's small. And after killing it, one Naga temple. So any advice for that? Two questions, sir. One is that.
Yeah.
The second one is for these young children here. My son is asking me, what should I become? A doctor like you? A businessman like you? Politician. Wildlife minister. The population should get frightened of you. That man is a wildlife well-wisher. He will not allow you to put the factory there. Is that the message I should give these children? Become politician if you are a wildlife well-wisher. You tell from your experience, because both of you are having free hands with reptiles, elephants, leopards and king cobras. What is this future going to, are they going to see them in the zoo very soon?
Well, as Janaki said, I think we live in a wonderful country where tolerance levels are just incredible. You know, I mean, there are plenty of people who will trash a snake if they see it. But on the other hand, there are plenty more people who will let it go and just leave it be. About trapping or catching a snake, a piece of pipe and attached to a bag is just an incredible, almost like a magic wand for a snake. Because if you put it in a place where the snake can get access to it, he's going to zip right inside. Phew, let me get away from these awful humans is basically what he's thinking.
So you should not try catching it, sir. A pipe and a
bag. Yeah, we've got a short video which I'm leaving here, and you'll get a chance to see it. It's called Snake Rescue the Expert Way.
Okay.
And it shows exactly how our friend Ajay Giri at Agumbe, whom some of you have seen or met already, catches king cobras, vipers, just with a bag and a pipe, and no messing around. In fact, amazingly, once he just put the pipe and the bag against the wall over there, he didn't the snake went right over and went in by himself. It was amazing. Really good.
And the advice to the children, sir.
Yeah, that one is a tough one.
So you have to give, because they have come, they have heard everything, they're seeing. What should they do? They become engineers, fly off abroad, doctors and fly off abroad, or stay back here.
The reason we shouldn't give advice is because I never took any advice so far in my life. So I don't think.
Thank you. I think that's a good place to stop. I'm sure you have many more questions, but I'm sure we can find ways in which you can communicate with them. But I'm really impressed by what this Luminary series lectures is trying to tell us. Last time we heard from Vezwara Wilson about how we need to be able to be responsible for the mess that we create and not let somebody else sort us out. And here we have this wonderful couple who are telling us that it's a state of mind that we have to have when we can live with other creatures within our own planet. And I'd really be grateful to all of you who could respect this couple for the work that they have done in their life's work. Thank you so much for coming.
I request our director, Dr. J.V. Peter, to present the souvenir to our chief guest.
Thank you, sir. Now, the citation for today's lecture will be given by Dr. Anna Pulimud, our principal.
On the occasion of its centenary year of medical education, CMC Vellore is proud to honor Romulus, Whitaker and Janaki, Lenin for their empowering and inspiring work in the field of wildlife conservation. Through their engagement with disadvantaged tribal groups that's promoted environmentally sustainable livelihoods, and through their films, writings, research, and the unique Madras Crocodile Bank and Snake Park, they've opened our eyes to all creatures great and small, reminding us of our stewardship and role in respecting the earth and its wealth of resources. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like to call upon Dr. Sushil John, Vice Principal HR, to propose the vote of thanks.
Good evening. I think like many of you, it's been a childhood dream of mine to actually meet Rom, and so I can truly say that I'm happy and privileged to propose this vote of thanks. In the interest of time, I'm going to cut my vote of thanks short, so please forgive me those who I miss out. So on behalf of CMC and all of us, and especially the wildlife and nature-loving people in CMC, I really want to thank both of you for your wonderful, illuminating, entertaining lecture and interaction that we've had. We also want to thank both of you for your work in ecology, your animal, reptile, environment conservation, your irregular community development work that is an amazing model, your public health work that you've done, saved so many lives through your works, your books, your films, your writings. I'm going to skip the CMC people. I'm going to thank all our friends from the different schools, the press, and the students from different colleges who have come. I have one announcement to make. This is regarding the third Luminary lecture. It's going to be held on July 4th. And the speaker is Mr. P. Sainath, who's a famous journalist, and he also received the Raman Magsaysay Award in 2007. And Amartya Sen has called him the world's great expert on famine and hunger. And he'll speak on droughts, farmer suicides, malnutrition, and hunger. Thank you very much.
I would request the audience to kindly stand for the closing prayer. I request Senior Chaplain Reverend Dr. Arul Das to come forward and close with a word of prayer.
Loving God, God of all nature, we thank you for the ecology. Thank you for people who work to preserve. We thank you for Mr. Romulus and Ms. Janaki, who are able to be with us this evening, to inspire us, to share their life and work with us. Continue to guide us so that we will learn how to live together in this wonderful world. Bless us and guide us. In Christ's precious name we pray. Amen. Blessing of God Almighty, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit be with us all now and forevermore. Amen.